Smoke.
By the way, I want to welcome Terrell, I think it's Terrell, to the chat room, also the text line, and I'll be reading what you put up, a couple of ideas about the Big 12 and company, so thanks to joining the family of Sikkim 365 Radio.
Yeah, and let us know if it's Terrell or Terrell.
Yeah, because Terrell Owens.
Yeah, Terrell Owens changed
Terrell
that whole
Buckley.
name for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always thought it was Terrell, so if it's Terrell, let us know that too, so we can make sure we get your name right. It's the least amount of respect we can show.
And it's
T-Buck's my favorite.
It's Jean Machota of theathletic.com who joins us now on Sikkim 365 Radio. So, John, did they take care of their backup quarterback with the move with Will Grier, or what's the status? Who's going to be the guy?
I still think it's going to be Cooper Rush, and the only reason I say it is because Will Grier makes sense if you would have brought him in like a month ago, but like there's just not going to be enough. There's not enough volume of things that he's going to be able to do during practice for you all of a sudden to say, okay, now this is our backup. Like they're just most of the reps that go to your first, your starting quarterback. Dak's going to get most of those reps in practice. He's, the backup quarterbacks do a lot of like scout team stuff. I just don't know if there's going to be enough time for him to even get acclimated and get to win a job for you to considerably jump Cooper Rush. While we sit there on the outside and sit there and go, they couldn't find anybody better than Cooper Rush. The Cowboys are very high on his understanding of the offense. So I just find it hard to believe that Will Grier is going to come in here and then in like a couple of weeks he's going to be their backup. I think of it more as he's a guy that has some upside, and I think that they're going to keep the extra quarterback because of COVID, and just in case they get in a situation like last year where all of a sudden you need 3-4 quarterbacks, you have some guys that are at least been working in the system, during the week for a few months, but. Yeah, to just automatically think that he's going to be above Cooper Rush, I just don't see that happening, especially not early in the season.
John, is it good news or bad news that the cuts went pretty much how anybody would think, and there was really no huge surprises?
I don't think it's a bad thing. I just like, obviously Cam Newton is the big name of all the cuts across the NFL. And I can understand arguments for and against why you'd want him to be the backup in Dallas. But outside of that, there just wasn't a lot of big names out there that I can really criticize them for not getting. And the other thing is having 5 guys on the COVID list allowed them 5 other spots to kind of maneuver around, different players and things like that. So they were able to keep most of their guys. And then with this practice squad that came out today, they got 15 of. Well, they actually had 17 spots because Isaac Alarcon, he doesn't count against. He's still an exempt this year. So they still have 3 more spots on the practice squad, and what they've filled so far are pretty much most of the guys that they waived or released. So I think it worked out pretty well for them. The waivers went through today, and like any of the guys that they let go were claimed by anybody else. So they pretty much got to keep who they wanted and got to bring back almost everybody else that they wanted under the practice squad. So, I think it's good for the Cowboys the way that it's gone down these last 24 hours or so.
We knew with the Rico Dowdle injury that the Cowboys could have their eyes on, pursuing another running back. And then today the news about Corey Clement. He was a part of that Philly special when he was with the Eagles in that memorable moment. But and then he got released by the Giants yesterday. So touring around the NFC East, now a member of the Cowboys. What are your thoughts on Corey Clement?
Yeah, whoever they were going to bring in as that third running back, it was going to be all about special teams. Corey Clement, obviously, he was big in that Super Bowl for them in 2017, but he's been mainly, especially last year, he was mainly a special teams guy. I think it was 61% of their special teams snaps he was involved in, and that's really what they need. That's what Rico Dowdle was going to do for this team. That's what Rico Dowdle did last year. And so, I don't think anybody should be thinking that all of a sudden they added this guy and he's going to be taking snaps away from Ezekiel Elliott or Tony Pollard or anything like that. They just wanted a veteran guy that could help on special teams immediately, and I think that Corey Clement brings. So, and it's not going to cost you much. So, I don't think that there's any big surprise there. If Rico Dowdle stays healthy, though, he's that guy. It was interesting that, especially you watch Hard Knocks yesterday, they were giving Jaquan Hardy every opportunity to win that job, and he's back on the practice squad now. But you could tell that after what they saw in those 4 preseason games, that they needed somebody more veteran-like. And so if Corey Clement's healthy and everything works out, then that should be a pretty good number 3 back to help out on special teams.
It seemed like, and John, I got to admit, me breaking down rosters, that's what you do. Paul does that. I don't that much. There was a time when I would have everybody that was a part of the possibility of making the team all like just everywhere. But I didn't. But I do know this. It seemed like this team just kind of fell into place as far as the original 53, despite the changes already or the ones coming. Do you feel that way as well?
I do. And I think one of the keys in that is that, yeah, they got to keep most of their guys, but then also that the most of them are healthy. They didn't really suffer too many injuries, and that was the goal all along. That you could very easily be looking at a situation where you have 3 or 4 Neville Gallimore situations right now, and they don't. They have Neville Gallimore that's probably going to start the season missing the first, month. Calvin Joseph with the groin injury he suffered in that last preseason game. He might miss the first, few games, but outside of that, they're going into this week 1 pretty healthy from top to bottom, and I think that's the thing that they got to be most excited about, because if you're healthy, it really doesn't matter what happened yesterday or today, because that's just churning the bottom of your roster. The only time that really matters is when all of a sudden you got to keep guys because you need them for depth, because a bunch of guys have gotten hurt and things like that, and you have to go scour other rosters to bring in some veterans. For the most part, they were able to keep everybody intact, and it looks like they're in pretty good shape going into week 1.
John, Malik Turner, Semi Fihoko, Azur Kamara, are these guys going to be on the roster on Sunday, or are they the guys who might find their way onto those empty practice squad spots?
No, I think that several of those names you mentioned are the ones that are going to be moved off. Once you get CeeDee Lamb back and Noah Brown off of the COVID list, I expect CeeDee Lamb to be off tomorrow. That's what Mike McCarthy said, that he was thinking that, they're going to be back in the building tomorrow. And as of Sunday, he said he figured most of those guys that would have been on the list will be back by Thursday. And the only one he's not counting would have been Noah Brown, because he just got put on the list yesterday. So, yeah, if by some chance that Noah Brown couldn't go week 1, then maybe you keep one of those other receivers up. But I just don't see them going deeper than 5 that are going to play on a Sunday, that are going to be on the active roster on game day. So, it's pretty set there. And then same thing with Kamara. Like Kamara's, he was on all the special teams units throughout the preseason, and obviously he's a good story on Hard Knocks, with his family being from the Ivory Coast and him coming over and making this initial 53, and that's big. But I don't see where he even really gets special team snaps. I just think that there's going to be other players that factor in there. So Bradley Anai is another one. I don't know where he really factors in either. And then even some of those linebackers there, them keeping that. Luke Gifford wasn't a huge surprise, and he even played pretty well in last preseason game. But Francis Bernard, I did not expect him to be on that initial 53. I think he would be another guy that you could see coming off of that before they play Tampa.
All right, so Paul, who's their kicker?
Greg Zuerlein. Greg the leg.
Did he ever kick it all in the preseason?
Yeah, he kicked the other night, right, John?
Okay, all right, okay. I didn't know. But he's coming off an injury, right?
Yeah. He had off-season back surgery and didn't do. So he had back surgery, I think it was a month before training camp. And so when he got into training camp, he was basically just kind of off to the side doing rehab work and things like that. He never kicked in training camp. That was almost all Hunter Nicewinder. And so over the last week or so, that's when they've kind of been bringing Zuerlein back, kicking him a little bit in practice, and then they wanted him to go in that final preseason game. And he had the one, I think it was a little over 50 yards, and he missed it just outside. I don't think they're really concerned with that. They know what he is as long as he's healthy, and particularly John Fossil. That's the way he feels about it. And you look at teams like the Lions cut both their kickers. If you're one of these teams that you don't have a kicker for sure, you're just churning guys that are on the waiver wire. The Cowboys have done it before in years past when they brought in Nicewinder, Brett Maher, and things like that. But I think they feel pretty good about Zuerlein. And so as of right now, as long as his back is fine and everything went well with the surgery, I think that they'll be fine there.
He last year, and I heard some barking on one of the talk radio shows out of Dallas, but last year he missed one kick under 50 yards. He was 3 for 9 from plus 50, and he's got the leg to kick it from that way. And I didn't understand why they were barking. And then I realized it was because he hadn't kicked in so long, and they were a little bit shaky about whether or not he had enough time to be able to get ready for the season opener. But I've always liked the guy. In fact, didn't he hammer the Cowboys one year? Paul kicked a bunch of field goals against him, and I was wondering about that, whether he's healthy or not. And now, with John, the extra little bit of time between the last preseason game, Jacksonville, and the opener against Tampa, he should have plenty of time to get in some practice as well, right?
That was the plan all along, and I don't think they take it as far as they have if there isn't this long, track record between Greg Zuerlein and with John Fossil, the special teams coordinator. And because they're so comfortable with each other, that's why they felt good about going down this path. Because if they didn't, or if there was even concern a little bit, and the Cowboys didn't bring in another kicker that could potentially, be a starter type guy, invest some money in another one, then that's obviously poor execution on their part. But all along they've maintained that, don't worry about what goes on, every single day in practice. We're on track. We're focused on getting all these guys out there for week one. CJ Goodwin's another guy in special teams. He hasn't been doing much in practice, but they maintain he'll be ready for week one. He's their best special teams player. So that's the thing. You got Dak Prescott didn't play a snap in special teams. In preseason. Ezekiel Elliott didn't play a snap in preseason. DeMarcus Lawrence. Anybody that's down on them going 0-4 in the preseason, trust me, you did not see the Dallas Cowboys of 2021 in this preseason. You will see them week one against Tampa Bay, and there will probably be some rust, but you definitely haven't seen them yet.
So, Paul, I saw this John Machota, this is on August 28th, which was, 3 days ago. Jalen Smith, physically I feel great, looking like myself, doing some amazing things sideline to sideline. I focused on a lot of mobility this offseason. And it wasn't John's quote from Jalen Smith, but the reactions to him.
Oh. John, I don't think there's a Cowboys player of the last 25 years that gets as much vitriol as Jalen Smith does.
I agree. And is it probably overblown? Sure. But he does he'll do some things to stoke the fire. Even at the very end of that interview on Saturday, and it didn't get as much traction because it was over the weekend, but even when he was asked by a reporter, hey, you're obviously a veteran player that, you played the majority of the defensive snaps these last 2 years, and that number's probably going to come down. Does that mean that you might play a little bit on special teams, or is that something they're not asking you to do because you're a veteran or whatever, and kind of just trying to feel him out? And he was just kept repeating vet life. And he just started laughing, basically I'm not going to do that. I'm a veteran or whatever. And I'm just kind of if you're a team leader and you're trying to do everything that can help, and your defensive snaps are coming down, wouldn't you want to be out in special teams? That kind of just left me scratching my head. It's one thing if they were if Jalen Smith is the player he was at Notre Dame and he's just, all over the place making plays. Yeah, don't waste him on special teams. He needs to be out on all the defensive snaps that are possible. Basically, I can give you a perfect comp. Micah Parsons. Okay, if Micah Parsons, you don't want him on special teams because you're going to have him on the field for every single defensive snap, then it's fine. But Jalen's defensive snaps are coming down this year. Maybe. Hold on, guys. This thought crossed my mind. Maybe he doesn't think his defensive snaps are coming down, which would be fascinating because it's going to be a rude awakening week one. But yeah, I was kind of surprised because I just figured that he prides himself on being a team leader. He'd be like, hey, whatever the team wants me to do, I'll do. If that's play, run down in special teams, that I'll do that. But and then let's just be honest, I don't know that really where he's best suited. I don't even know if he would be a great special teams player, but it was just the question was asked. Didn't seem like he was very interested in even that idea.
Yeah, it was a weird answer, and I'm with you, John. I think he might not have understood, quite frankly, what was being talked about based on his answer. So that's kind of what I'm thinking as well. So yeah, it was bizarre. So yeah, I'm with you. I think he was just kind of maybe not even realizing what he was answering, quite frankly.
Yeah, sometimes when you have you just get that rep, and so whatever you say, it's going to be twisted or whatever. Sometimes it's just you shouldn't say it.
There's one time I asked him a question in the post game, and he tried to get real philosophical with me, and either it was above my head completely, or it didn't make any sense. So John, I just pretended like I knew what he was talking about. I was like, yeah, I got you. No,
it is. We are in a different time though now, where there's certain guys that it's they're such a lightning rod anytime they talk because they almost always will say something that, will kind of ruffle feathers. And this kind of leads into my thoughts on the Cam Newton thing. I just think that right now teams are in a better situation than ever before to kind of keep those guys from being a distraction because they can just not make them available that often. Like you mentioned, talking to Jalen after a game, you get him after every single game in his locker, no matter what. Jalen will always talk. But now that we only get a handful of people at the podium and then in this other media room, if he's not being requested, then we're not going to talk to him. And it's the same thing with Cam Newton. People talk about, if they brought him in, he could be a distraction. Why? Unless he's doing stuff on social media and then complaining like that or doing things behind the scenes to undermine Dak's success, which it just doesn't seem like he would do. One of the biggest distractions for these backup quarterbacks, whether it was back in the day when people complained about the idea of Tim Tebow as a backup or Colin Kaepernick on a team, is that, well, then people would go up to them all the time and be asking all these questions about their own things and what are going on. And they would talk about them all the time, and it would be distraction in the locker room, and they're a backup quarterback. Well, that won't be a case now because they just won't make those backup quarterbacks available. So, if let's say the Cowboys were to sign Cam Newton, it really wouldn't matter how he dresses at a press conference because he wouldn't be at the press conference. He wouldn't be available. We would never even get a chance to talk to him. So, if you are going to bring in somebody like that, I feel like now is as good a time as ever.
Yeah, John. All right, one question from Hard Knocks. What did you think of Terrell Basham's stand-up set from what we got to see?
He mentioned this out at training camp. I think was the first time he talked to a group of us that he's really into stand-up, huge Dave Chappelle fan and that. And me personally, I'm a huge fan of stand-up. I think, there's probably other things out there that aren't cross. I think it's one of the most difficult things to do, especially in a small setting like that. It takes a lot of guts to be able to do that. And so, I don't think it was great, but he was honestly better than I thought he was going to be, especially for that being his first time going up in front of a group, even though probably half the people there were probably his teammates that have heard him tell jokes before. But I guess maybe it's all about the bar you set. Did you think it was going to be good when it was leading in? Then it probably underwhelmed. But I was kind of thinking this is not going to be good. This is way more difficult to do than making jokes in a meeting room. So I did like how they closed it out by going back into the meeting room and had him tell the joke again. And DeMarcus Lawrence walks in and he completely loses focus because Lawrence is standing right in the doorway. So no, that made for good TV.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I might contact the Cowboys and tell them to send him down. I'll put him up here in Waco. It's hard to do, man. It's not an easy thing. So I was impressed.
I would think comedy has always been hard. Either you have it or you don't, and sometimes I guess you can get good at it. But if you weren't, but God, this day and age, you've lost. I would think some things that maybe we shouldn't have been laughing at, but you used to be able to talk about it, joke about it, laugh about it. But, man, a lot of your content is gone.
Go look at Eddie Murphy back in the 80s, and it's not going to fly today. You know,
George Carlin had those. How many words were there, Paul?
7.
7 words. Now there's 1,700.
Which were no.
Yeah. Hey, John, great stuff. Can't wait to the season to get going. And Tampa Bay will discuss the Bucs and Tom Brady and company and the Super Bowl champions next week as well.
Sounds good, guys.
John Machota, athletic.com.
I want to pass this along. I just saw Sam Kahn from